It is undeniable that the collective is picking up something. The only thing limiting us, if it's an unlimited reality, is our belief patterns. If we can get behind the idea that we are at some level creating this reality around us, we do it from the mind, we're going to create our personal reality based on duality. If we do it from the heart, we can create a reality based on unity consciousness and love. Destiny is a default for those who don't realize they have choice.
Viola, welcome to the
Thank you. Happy to
podcast.
be here.
I'm excited. Like I said, I've been slowly, thanks to social media and internet, just you never know who you're going to meet and who you come across. And I wanted to reach out and invite you onto the show and get your wisdom to be shared with our audience today. And what's coming to me even before recording this as the podcast and where to start is that everyone I seem to be talking to at the moment is feeling this pressure, as if there's so many changes, there's so much turmoil going on in the world. When you feel into what's happening right now and from your own vast experience of life, what do you feel is happening or what do you see and what do you feel when you look at the world right now?
I do feel that we're in a unique time. A lot of people are talking about it, like you said, and that there's this tangible energy of precipice somehow, somewhere that we're tuning into, that things are changing or things are shifting or big things are going on deeper levels. And I do tune into that. I do feel that. But I have no idea about what that actually is. I'm just trying to stay open and stay in my heart and meet the moments where they are. But it is undeniable that the collective is picking up something of some shift. And I know that we've been on a precipice for decades. The New Age movement, the Mayan calendar, like all these different teachings are talking about this time of change. And it seems like it goes on for decades. And yet, of course, when you look at the bigger scope of reality, decades is just a blip. It really is just a moment, even though for our human lives, it seems like it's going on and on, like one of those songs where it kind of builds up to a crescendo before it drops, And it's like we've just been hanging there for so long, but really it's a blink of an eye. And so learning to relax into the tension of the precipice of, the peak. And can I make home here? Can I stay in my heart and breathe in my heart here in the peak and relax my whole being? And that to me is what's the exciting promise of these times if we actually pay attention.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. It's funny, isn't it? Because it feels like that. It's like it's almost as if we're just waiting for some click and everything's just going to fall into place or something. But I don't feel like it's going that way. You mentioned the heart as well, and I'm curious to know your thoughts because they say obviously the longest journey is the shortest distance, and that's from the head to the heart. And we've been so conditioned in this kind of masculine male energy dominant force of that. We're in our heads. We're constantly in our heads. And if you look at the way technology is, everything's attracting our attention, which is mind-based. Why do you feel the heart is so important and is the way to go in terms of these times and why it's asking of us to be more in our hearts?
I have a lot to share around this, and this is a big topic for me about sort of the heart way, the way of the heart. And the reason is the mind is a duality-based tool. It is a really great tool for this third dimension. Like, we live in a world that is full of duality. Everything is negative, positive, masculine, feminine, good, bad. Like this is a dualistic world. And the brain itself is a dualistic organ, right? It has a left side and a right side separated by the corpus callosum. It's divided into two. And because of that, it is a great task doer to navigate this third dimensional duality. However, the heart is not based in duality, and it is based in oneness or unity consciousness. I mean, that's why I think the heart is the term that we use for when a person is in a loving space and they are at peace, right? They're in the heart space. And so The mind being a dualistic tool and a tool to navigate this third dimension, because it's based in duality, the more that we are living from the mind, the more that we're living in that duality. It's like it almost sets it up that, and society has actually set it up for us, that the more we were in our creativity when we were younger, the more we were in our heart, the more we were in other places, we were steered and ushered, be in the mind, be in your logic, pay attention, and, cultivate the idea that we live here. And if you ask most people, if you're not your body, but you're a spirit inhabiting your body, where are you? Most people will say that they're in their head, because we've been taught to reside here, but we're also taught that the mind is really where our consciousness is. And we're also looking from here, we're talking from here. There's just so much going on that people are residing in the mind. And by doing so, possibly creating realities that are based upon duality. Because if we are creators of our reality, or at least co-creators, if we can get behind the idea that we are at some level creating this reality around us, then wherever we're doing it from is going to have a direct result on the reality around us. So we do it from the mind, we're going to create our personal reality based on duality. If we do it from the heart, we can create a reality based on unity consciousness and love. So that's a little basic overview, and I'm happy to get more
Mm.
into it if you want.
No, no, we can keep getting into it, absolutely, because it's when you start to break it down like that, it feels just so obvious when you look out in the world. To me, anyway, you look out in the world, it's all based on duality, isn't it? Everything, and from mind structures, and it seems like we're burrowing in deeper and deeper that way, and it's just not working. To a degree, there's no, it's so lopsided at the moment. How does one then start to really explore the heart? Because I think what I've witnessed on my journey from being in front of many people is that they might get the concept, like, oh yeah, but they're still in their head. They actually have no reference point of what it actually means to be living from the heart, to actually maneuver themselves out of this duality thought process. Like you said, everything comes out of the head. You look, you talk, your mouth, and to the point where they don't even realize they're not even in their bodies,
Totally.
and they as
Yeah, I'm happy
well.
to answer that question. I want to go
Yeah.
back just a little bit to touch on something that you just said about how, yeah, it's not getting us anywhere and we're just kind of spinning our wheels. And I think that it's, by design or by the nature of duality, is that it continues to play out in that way. And so people pray for peace, and then they get some peace, but they get some war. They're trying to make changes, and it's always two steps forward, two steps back. We do keep seeming to spin, spin, spin. That is the nature of duality. And so rather than trying to change duality, which by its nature is dualistic, let it be and just drop the awareness into the heart. So the question you asked is, how does a person start to do that? What does that actually even mean? Like, oh, I'm living in my heart. Like, what is it? What are you doing to be living in your heart? And how is that different? So I do facilitate workshops for a man named Drunvalo Melchizedek, and he has an amazing body of work, and he's been around for decades, and he has a workshop called Awakening the Illuminated Heart. And so I do teach workshops based upon this, and it is all about how to get out of the duality of the mind and into the unity of the heart. And so there are practices you can do, and the first thing is to make yourself aware of what we're calling your spirit center. So I asked that question earlier, like, if I'm not my body, but I'm a spirit inhabiting my body, where am I located? Well, when you get a sense of that, you might visualize that center, who you truly are, your spirit center, your soul center, whatever you might want to call it, like a little sphere or a little ball about this big. And this is what's residing for most people in the mind. But you could take it and actually move it inside of your body, because if you're not your body, then it is possible to travel inside of your body with your awareness and your vantage point. So moving the vantage point actually physically from the mind, traveling down and going into the heart and inhabiting here and having the vantage point here, is a way to inhabit the heart and be living in the heart. because what often happens is people can be in their mind saying, "Okay, I'm in my heart. I'm totally having an experience of my heart," but they're in their mind thinking about it. The mind is just so tricky and so clever, and it will show us movies, and it will show us realities that are just movies that are playing out in the mind. And we think we're in our heart, and we might even be watching ourselves traveling down into the heart, but we're doing it from the vantage point of being in the mind and watching ourselves go down. And it's not as exactly real. It's the tricks of the mind. So, physically actually feeling yourself traveling in your body with the core essence of your being and going in and inhabiting into the heart. It feels different. You feel it when you do it, and you know that you're there, like you've actually stepped into something that feels sacred. Like as if you stepped into an ancient temple. You get that feeling when you go into a temple that people have prayed in for thousands of years, like when you get goosebumps, you're like, I'm in a holy place. You can have that experience going into your heart, and then you know you're there.
I love how you described that. I've never heard it said that way before. Like you say, like if you're not your body, then you can travel through your body. I mean, in terms that way, in describing and placing your awareness there. Do you even get to the point where your waking state is literally you're not in your mind, you've traveled and you're in your heart as you're like walking through your day, doing the cooking and
Yeah, that's the goal. That's
with
the goal,
people?
right? The goal is living in the heart, not necessarily visiting the heart once a day in a meditation, right? That's great, but that's just training to be living in your heart, because the more that we're actually living from the unity consciousness of the heart, the less we're in the duality spin and the roller coaster ride of the mind. So if a person has a practice where they do a meditation, say every morning when they get up, and they actually go down, travel into the heart, set up their sort of home base for the day in the sacred temple of the heart. Then, as they go throughout the day, what's going to happen is you're going to notice when you're not in your heart. Right now, if a person doesn't have a practice, they might just be in their mind all day and think that's totally normal. But if you start to inhabit the heart space, suddenly you're in line at the grocery store and stressed out and like, getting frustrated. And I might sometimes catch myself and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so not in my heart right now. It stands out. I notice it when I'm not because I'm making it a practice to be there more often. So then the practice actually just becomes returning and returning over and over many times throughout the day. And the practice of getting there becomes quicker and easier. The more you walk it, the more you walk any path in the forest, it gets more well worn and easy to walk. So when you make the journey from here, like you said, the longest distance is from the head to the heart, but it can actually become a quicker pathway the more you become familiar with it. So then you just drop back in. Couple breaths, back in the heart.
Yeah.
And so then you're living there more than you're living in the mind. And I feel like when you get to that point where you're in your heart more of the day than you're in your mind, that's when the scales really start to flip and you're not creating a reality based upon duality as much. So the roller coaster of life starts to simmer down and it becomes more like a river of grace. And it doesn't have to be perfect and you don't have to be in your heart all the time. It's just something to strive toward and tip the scale a little bit more in that direction so that we can live lives of relaxation and ease, be more available, be in service, and have a joyful experience here, regardless, of what's going on.
What have you found in your own journey then from these practices? Because the other thing that's coming to me is the obvious one, the mind thinks, but the heart knows. And we tend to, I know I certainly did. I mean, nobody ever told me to put my awareness in my heart growing up as a Welshman in the valleys. And what I realized happened was that as I moved more and more into the heart and this knowing, it's like the truth, it's like getting to the essence, the truth of my heart and soul. And yet I built a life around me from making choices from the mind that were not actually in alignment of who I really am and what my heart was saying there, because I never
Right.
listened to it. And I feel many people are very fearful of that choice because they think their whole life is just going to fall apart and disintegrate, or, oh my God, what choices have I been doing? So there's a question in there somewhere, like, what have you noticed on your own journey? What have you noticed with others from when we actually start to decide that we want to walk this path more?
Okay, so what I've noticed is that the mind really is like a house of cards. And like the example you just gave, that people think that their life might crumble if they don't follow the logic of the mind and they go into something more subtle, into the subtle reality of the heart. And I think it's actually the opposite, that the mind plays like it's the master. It plays like it's the logic doer and is going to keep our life afloat, but it is a house of cards and it is an illusion. And the mind lately, for me, over the last few years, the more I do this work, the more I don't pay that much attention to the mind. It feels to me like almost like a frequency jammer, like it's just broadcasting all day long, all the time, in all the different compartments of the brain, and there's multiple thoughts happening. It just keeps the frequency and the signal jammed from what's right in front of our face. And what's right in front of our face is the true reality that's right here that we can actually tap into the heart. Whatever that is for each person, but there is something sublime. There is something pure and something much deeper and richer than anything that we see going on here. And we can't pay attention to it if we're constantly paying attention to the frequency jamming static of the mind. And it seems like a person could spend decades and decades trying to quiet the mind by doing meditation and practices, and it's almost futile. People can get progress where there's more spaciousness in between the thoughts, and I think that's a worthwhile practice to do. However, to spend a life fighting against the mind is almost as much of a distraction as anything else, is what I'm coming to. And so what I'm learning to do is let the mind do this. It's doing it all day. It's doing it all the time. It's commentary about everything I'm doing and giving it story. And I'm just like, okay, mind, you do your thing. You're going to have your thoughts. It's happening. I'm just going to put my attention here. So now I'm not fighting the mind at all. I'm just putting my awareness in the heart. And the mind chatter is fading to the background. It's not going away, but it's not running the show. And I'm not building my house of cards or my life on those mind chatters. I think that the truth of our nature is not words. And that's all the mind does. And words were something that we were taught. When we came into this world, we didn't have words, and we didn't even have the concept of linear thought. We were an essence being, and our parents taught us to think. They taught us to acknowledge our name as, this is me. Oh, this is me. And then consecutive thoughts where we think that. But that's just something that we've learned, this linear pattern of the mind and thoughts. And yet the truth of our reality might just be such an essence thing that's deeper than that. So that's why I was saying that I think that maybe it's the mind that's the house of cards, and that this essence nature that doesn't even have words and we can't even define it with words is actually more true. So that's been my fun journey lately, and it is incredibly
Well,
freeing.
I bet. I get it. I mean, I used to dabble with meditation and just think this is bullshit. Like my mind was going all the time. And then when I realized, I went and saw Greg Braden years ago, and he talked about breathing through the heart. And when I started doing that, I was like, oh my God, I could feel shifts in my body. And I started to get it, exactly what you just articulated so beautifully in that. Amazing. And it changed everything. And then as that's opened up over the years, obviously my life went on a completely different trajectory. But from listening to that knowing, as opposed to trying to form a construct in my mind that was based upon fear anyway, of this lack or scarcity. Is there never enough? Am I going to do this? And actually start to surrender more and listen to what wants to come through, and it changes everything,
Beautiful.
for sure. I want to go a little bit deeper. And what I found fascinating when I was listening to you talk was in a previous YouTube or something, you actually talk about the heart and the Merkaba. And I was wondering if you could just break that down a little bit as well, from what is the Merkaba and the Merkaba of the heart for people. I'm standing here right now in Lake Taupo in a beautiful retreat space. And there's a vast difference between an intellectual experience and passive listening to a fully embodied, lived experience. Because that's what retreats can do. They can help you land, start to truly reconnect to yourself, to others, to nature, and to spirit as well. There's so much in it. That's why we created Live in Flow, and that's why we are so passionate about getting this work out there and bringing people together. If you want to find out more when our next retreat or event is coming up, just check out the link below. And now, back to the podcast.
Well, Merkaba is a term, if people aren't familiar with it, that translates as loosely light body, or in some ancient texts, a vehicle or chariot. And essentially, it's a vehicle or a vessel that will allow us to go beyond the constructs of this third dimensional reality. And I think it's actually a little bit more true to who we actually are than these 3D flesh suits, which our spirit is inhabiting here. But take away the flesh suit, and what's left, if a person is in their full activated capacity, would look something more like a light body, a body of light. And it is possible to get in touch with this light body and activate it so that we are inhabiting more than our physical body. We're inhabiting our deeper essence, our spiritual essence. And when a person has that activated, is what Drunvalo Melchizedek teaches, and what lots of other ancient texts teach as well, is that that will allow a person to travel beyond this dimension when a person passes on, instead of just being sort of recycled here. Because if you're just a 3D being, you're stuck here. But if you can actually vibrate higher and vibrate at a frequency that goes beyond the density that we have here, then you can actually resonate and go there when you shake the body. So that's what the Merkaba is for. And it is possible to activate it from the heart, which according to Drunvalo's teaching, is the more authentic way to activate it. There's all kinds of Merkaba activation meditations out there in the world that involve creating one around you. And it's one that Drunvalo originally taught back in the 90s when he first started to present this work to the world, because people were quite ready to do it from the heart. And so some of those teachings are still out there in the world. And that was like a synthetic Merkaba, or something that you created. But we all have the seed of a natural living Merkaba inhabiting this physical body with us. And that is in the unity of the heart. So if we learn to truly get into the unity of the heart, then we can do some other practices that involve connecting the heart back to the brain, opening the third eye, and then activating our natural heart-based Merkaba field. And I tell you, when I activated that for myself, I kind of feel like a galactic superhero, actually, in a way, where like I've got this field around me that feels stronger and more powerful than almost anything in the external. And it makes me feel safe and sovereign and free. And it frees me up to not be in fear and to just walk my path and be in service in whatever way I feel called to, because I've got this extra, oomph to my existence.
How would you describe that feeling for people, that essence, because it can be challenging if people haven't been there before, that this is what you're talking about is actually tangible. It's almost like, I've noticed, like it's almost like a crystallization. You can turn it on, and then you can feel the energy moving
Yeah.
through you, like, and all around you. And it's like, no, that's tangible. That's real. It's not
Yeah, I
metaphorical
think you
here,
just
you
described it
know?
great. And I will add that it also feels like a part of me. It doesn't feel like something separate than me, that I'm putting on something that is not me. So it makes me feel energetically also larger. That's part of the feeling, is I kind of feel huge energetically, not in a way that bowls people over, or when I walk into a room, I'm taking over the room with my energy. It's graceful, but it's just a subtle thing, but that you feel almost the potency of who you are. And it's something like if you ever going for a walk in the forest, and you're just really connecting with nature around you, and like you're breathing in the prana of nature, and you start to kind of merge with the field of nature, how that can almost become you. And then you feel like you are the forest, like that expansion that happens where who you are is much larger than your physical body. That is the feeling that I have with the Merkaba.
Yeah, beautiful. And I was intrigued as well, because you spoke about that Drumvalo was teaching it originally about creating out as almost like outside of yourself, but then what you've learned to realize is that you that the Merkaba is within the heart. Do you feel that there's a trap in that if you through the creating, because you're creating it from the mind per se to a degree, that it's actually maybe we can still be stuck in our mind even with an activated
Yes,
Merkaba?
exactly, and that is why Drumvalo was very excited that when he finally felt collectively that we were ready, he brought in the heart-based Merkaba teaching, because what he found is that when people activated the Merkaba from the mind in the original way, people could still have their egos very strong. And then the egos would come in and be say, wow, look how powerful I am, or I'm going to change this and do it in other ways. And the egos could get almost inflated, like spiritual ego. But when you do it from the heart, you actually have to learn to inhabit this sacred space in the heart, which neutralizes ego. And so then then you can only activate the heart-based Merkaba after having achieved that state. And so the egos don't run the show, whereas the other way, the ego can kind of come in. So that could be the trap of doing it from the mind.
Mm. Do you feel then? I'm just curious. I'm just like that. The heart work is basically then becomes the foundation, the fundamental to everything in terms of healing. Because we'll speak of once people start becoming aware of this work, they might realize that there could be lineage trauma that's passed down through our genes and epigenetics and DNA, and we're acting out emotions or feelings that might not even be ours, or there might obviously be childhood trauma or different experiences that we're not aware of that are affecting our behavior, our beliefs, and how we perceive the world in any given moment. And sometimes we're often just trying to dig for these things, and sometimes I think the more we dig, the more we find. But what are your thoughts on kind of all of that aspect to it and the awakening of the
I do
heart
believe that the heart
as a
is
core?
at the exact center of the primary focus that affects everything. That if a person were going to do one practice, one thing, it would be inhabit your heart. Because once you get into the heart space, if you can just get in, sometimes it's hard for people to get in because they have trauma. They have all these things that may have happened in their life. And it can make it sometimes challenging for some people to get into the heart because, say, a trauma was too painful to feel in the heart. Well, then we store it out here and out here. We can have all these little boulders, these blockages that are stored outside the heart. So we try to travel and get in, and you might bump up against that pain, which we haven't actually processed. People can get anxiety or not want to go further, and then they can't quite get in. But if we can do just enough to create a crack, a little opening, just to get around and get into the heart, now you're there, and now you can, it's much easier to start to heal everything, because most of the traumas are around the heart. And so to be able to start to heal those traumas and make peace with ourselves, make peace with our life. So getting into the heart will affect everything, in our lives. And, in the Awakening the Illuminator Heart workshop, there's, a whole healing ceremony around it. There's practices, and it's like, how does a person get there and clear enough trauma? So sometimes those traumas that are keeping us from actually getting into the heart are completely outdated information, something from a long time ago that's not even carrying a charge anymore, but it's still just there because it hasn't been had the spotlight shown upon it. And so sometimes it's just awareness. And even if a person has an uncomfortable feeling trying to go in, if they can go through it and get to the heart and just go through enough, sometimes that's enough to neutralize it. And if it's not, then
Yeah.
sometimes something actually does need to be worked through, like with a trained psychologist, because maybe there's things in there to unpack and understand before it can be cleared.
Before they feel safe enough to let it go. Yeah, incredible. Now, I just want to mention as well, from what I understand, that, and just for people aware, because we've mentioned Drumvalo multiple times, many people might know where he is, but he wrote the Flower of Life
So
books, I
yes,
believe, right?
in the early 90s, he came out with The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, volumes 1 and 2, which definitely took the metaphysical world by storm. And he was teaching Flower of Life workshops for many years. And then he wrote some other books and created the Awakening the Illuminated Heart workshop in 2011. And then just a month or so ago, yeah, came
recently.
out with The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, Volume 3.
Oh, wow, that's a
Yes,
big
and
book because I'm about to
it's
buy it, actually. I
beautiful.
went to order it the other day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and full
Wow.
color.
Is it an
It's
illustration?
completely,
Oh
like,
my
full
god.
color illustrations. It's like a magazine, like, it's just beautiful. It came out so beautiful, and what this book is the Awakening the Illuminated Heart workshop that I facilitate, that Drumbolo facilitated for many years, and, about 100 of us teachers around the world have been facilitating it now since 2012. He took it and transcribed it into a book and then added a bunch of more information. So it's kind of a study guide for the workshop or a companion to. So it is called Awakening the Illuminated Heart, Volume 3, Awakening the Illuminated Heart. So it's very exciting time right now in the world for people who've been sort of waiting on this book for a long time.
Incredible. What's your story? I
Yeah.
know nothing about you. Like,
So yeah, so
I just know you do good
thank
stuff.
you. Um So I am in the Sedona, Arizona area, and Drumbolo is here as well. So I work closely with Drumbolo. I worked helping to edit
Right.
on the book, and I also did the audio recordings for the book. Drumbolo and I both. He did about 5 of them, and I did about 21 of them. There's a bunch of audio meditations that actually accompany the book. So I'm in the Sedona, Arizona area. I've been here for 4 years, but I've been teaching Drumbolo's work since 2012 and doing that, and I've taught well over 100 of these 4-day workshops, and it's sort of half of my path here in the world. I love his work. I love that workshop. It's a masterpiece, and I'm honored to be able to facilitate it. And the other half of what I do is I'm a sound healer and a musician. And that is as much of a love for me. It's like I have these dual sort of life paths. And so I do a lot of sound healing sessions with people and a lot of events and a lot of different sound things and music.
Oh, beautiful. And did you come into the world awake, and you've always been into this, or did you go through your own kind of dark night of the
Mm.
soul
I think I,
to
I definitely came
really?
into this world different. I wouldn't necessarily say awake because there's a veil that we all somehow go through the veil of forgetting whatever that means, right? But I definitely was different, and I definitely was never quite bought into society and the world. And I feel like I individuated. I may have come in individuated, and I think I've always been very individuated and not bought into the herd or what society was telling me. So by the time I was 18, or like almost like the day I graduated high school, I just kind of checked out of society and took off, and then my journey just continued to unfold. First, I found the hippies and did a lot of, rainbow gatherings and camping out in the forest. And then I found Eastern spirituality, and in my 20s lived in ashrams in India, and,
Oh,
just
wow.
always finding my own way and finding the next breadcrumb that would lead me to remembering more my true nature.
What did that teach you, living in an ashram in India? What was that like?
I think it was interesting because it was my mid and early 20s where I was like a shaved head monk, just for quite a few years, like on this spiritual path. And most people spend their 20s yucking it up, partying, and then find spirituality later in life. And because I did it early and I found like I was just done with the world by 21, and I knew I was time to dive deeper. And so to do it that young, and then eventually I kinda came back into the world. I was, staying at Amachi's ashram in Kerala, and she was kinda like a guru that I had for a while, and I asked her if I could be a renunciate and live at the ashram forever, and she laughed at me. She was like, "No, you go home. You've got things to do in this world." And I just kinda dived 200% into what I'm into, so I thought that was maybe the way. And then only when I came back and kind of dove back into the world again did I realize that that gave me a spiritual foundation for my life. To do that in my 20s, that has set me up in a whole different way, that now that I'm in my mid 50s, I'm so anchored in both. I can be in the world and it doesn't own me in any way because I set that spiritual foundation up when I was younger. And now I totally embrace life and the world, but it doesn't own me, but it also doesn't affect me. Like, my life motto these days is "Be in joy anyway." so simple, and that's it. Like, whatever's going on externally, I'm just kind of choosing my vibration and to choose to be in joy. So I think those times in my 20s really set that in place for me.
Set the foundation. And were you always a musician at
Yeah.
that point? And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. What was your
So not
instrument
I'm not a trained
of
musician in
choice?
any way. Like I said, I haven't had a conventional life in any form, but when I was 20, 21 and I kind of went off and found the hippies and did rainbow gatherings and this and that, I found that I was a singer and that I could sing people. I could sing the sunset. I could sing people's essence. And I would play drums and play flutes and play didgeridoos, but my main instrument is as a vocalist and not a trained vocalist and not a normal vocalist, but somebody who can actually really bring through some profound things through the voice. And so that is my main instrument, and I use it in my sound healings as well. And I teach embodied vocal coaching to help people find their voice as well.
I was going to ask you about that because obviously I work with Matt. He's a sound healer when we run events, and it's taught me a lot about sound and even voice. And he'll always speak to the voice as well. And I'm interested because so many people out there haven't found their voice and they're frightened to use it and project it in any shape or form. What have you found with yourself in voice and healing and in this work and how they
Yeah.
correlate
So
to
a few
help
different
people?
touch points. One is that when I'm working with clients, the thing that affects them the most is when I'm singing. And or if I do a sound bath, I do lots of like sound bath events and where people come. And inevitably, it's always the thing that people say the most. It's like your voice that made me cry, that it touched me like nothing else. And I think the reason is because any instrument that I might play or anyone might play has to go through a translation process. If I want to present something to the field, I'm translating what I want to present through an instrument and sharing it in that way. But the voice is a direct transmission. There's no instrument in the way. It's coming directly through, which is, I think, why sometimes people are so shy about it or timid around that because it is direct. There's no buffer. And so it's a direct expression of my soul essence or whatever soul essence I'm tuning into to sing. So that's one of the things. And then when I'm working with vocal coaching with people and people come in, it's interesting how this area can be so blocked, like you said. Sometimes, yeah,
The
sometimes
throat.
people's voices are just from here up. They're just talking up here. They're not in their body at all. They're all the voices coming from up here. And then the training is how to open this up, how to get them, inhabiting the body, inhabiting the womb space, inhabiting all the different layers so that we can speak and embody our voice, fully. And so it is an interesting journey of how many people have been shut down by whatever experiences that they've had in their life or society that like, you don't have a voice, you don't deserve to have a voice, or out of protection or something like that, that they've cut it off right about there.
Yeah. And how have you found as well, just on this topic for a moment, what do you think? Do you ever want to ponder upon what is happening with the body and how it heals and sound heals? Do you think it's just a movement of energy ultimately at the end of the day? And if we're releasing
Well,
into it,
there is just definitely something about sacred geometry, the Fibonacci sequence, and how biological sound, structures, which we are a biological structure, and sound are related. And that is through sacred geometry, like the way that the body forms itself is tends to be in the Fibonacci sequence, which you can, kind of get into, that's a side topic, but that, we have ratios in our body that are based upon mathematics and sacred geometry. We are sacred geometry. And sound is also based upon mathematics and structures like that. And so there's something about sound that when we hear it and it's harmonic, it helps us remember our original blueprint. Because whatever's going on here, in the beginning was the word, in the beginning was vibration. And, you could translate that however you want, but it's almost like vibration is what creates physical structures. Because when you look at a physical structure, of course, we know it's not solid at all. It's just vibrating particles and atoms and things that are creating an illusion of something solid. So everything is vibration. So if we are in training with sound, then we are sort of soothing and in training to natural frequencies and natural vibrations. So the harmonics let biological structures remember their natural blueprint. So it's almost like a reminder, aha, this is who I am. This is how I can be vibrating and be in harmony with myself. So that's one of the ways I think it works.
Yeah, no, beautiful. And it just got me thinking about our environment then. How do you look at that in terms of harmonic? Because, the moment we go and spend a week in nature, we start resonating in a completely different
Yeah.
frequency, right? Everything just slows, especially if we leave our phones behind or whatever that might be. And we just start humming completely different and we syncing up with Mother Earth. And then, but we don't give any awareness to the environment we're in and what's vibrating around us and what frequency
Yeah.
it's putting out. And we're mirroring it
It's
at the end
true.
of the day.
And I don't know that we can change that. Like whatever's going on in the world is going on in the world. And so rather than fighting against it, I just know that that means I have to maintain and protect my frequency. And that means going every day down to the river and doing barefoot walking, doing sun gazing at sunrise every day barefoot, doing sound, humming to myself in the day, just bringing those things into your life so that you're kind of creating the reality that is more natural, even though what's presented to us and offer isn't. So we have to actually choose it for ourselves consciously.
It's funny, isn't it? Because like the old me would just think, oh, this is just hippy dippy shit, right? But you get these stereotype images, but then when you actually start to understand what's going on and the effects on the body and how it actually
Yeah.
changes who we being, it's so
Yeah.
powerful,
It's not hippie stuff. It's
I
real.
like it.
We are electromagnetic and the earth is magnetic and the sun is electric. And when you get out in the first morning and you're standing barefoot and you've got the magnetics of the earth and the electric from the sun coming in, like you feel yourself spark and turn on and light up. Like it's real. I mean, it makes sense, but we just not, people aren't tuning into that level because it's not offered.
Mm. I just while we kind of move into the last part of the podcast, I want to just pan it out for a moment and get your views on what do you think is the journey for us as individuals, like in the relationship to the universe and the cosmos, like big picture, and why we here, why we go through a veil of forgetting. What is the name of the game, really? Is it to remember ourselves? Like, how do you see all this or how it works? Or yeah, where has your experience taken you to this
Mhm.
point, I guess,
I think that
with
the
that?
longer I'm on the path that I'm on, the less I know. And at this point, I don't have any answers of what's actually going on here. And it's actually been a delight to not be grasping after answers. And I did it for decades. And, I've been down every rabbit hole I could possibly go down, and I still kind of do. But just from a light, slightly detached place where I'm like, really, I don't know that we even have the hardware to understand what's actually happening here, who we are, where we came from, what this place is. And so, where are we going? I actually don't know. And so, when I distill it down to then, okay, what's real? What can I count on here? And what is actually real is like to be loving, to be in service, and be in joy anyway. That's really all I can come up with that sets me up to have the best life I can, that affects the greatest change without putting hardcore answers, which inevitably end up changing anyhow. The further research I do, now I have a new vantage point existentially of what's happening and whatnot. So just, maybe it's just something that happens the older we get, that we start to let that go and be content with the unknown. But I'm kind of getting there. So I don't know. I could have tons of ideas and I've researched tons of them of what's actually happening here. But somehow here we are. And I'm going to choose to be loving and choose to be in my heart, choose to help where I can and have a good time and be in joy.
No, I love it. And but the key word that you keep saying there is choose, choice. And we all have a choice,
Yeah.
don't we? At the end
Yeah,
of the
I don't
day,
think that there's no
right?
victimhood in that. There's just choice. And
Mm.
many people aren't looking beyond what's just offered, so they don't really have a choice. It's almost like destiny as a default for those who don't realize they have choice. But the more we look
Yeah.
deeply, we can have a choice about so much, well, pretty much almost everything. Maybe not the external, but how we navigate the external.
No, beautiful. And just this is more from my kind of curious soul. That's like, because as things keep opening up for me, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that that was possible. That's really interesting. I kind of keep this childlike awe and wonder. And when you've had somebody like Drunvalo in your life, and through his, I guess, journey and experiences, what are we leaving out on the table? What are we capable of as humans? So, like, what's it like being in his presence, and what does he report back? Is he like just spending 4 hours a day meditating every day, or like how does where does he get this wisdom from? Because like these are deep, deep
Yeah.
teachings that are being presented.
Well, he's tapped into some really deep levels, and he also somehow doesn't have that veil of forgetting, right? So he's a little bit more tapped into his true nature, and so he gets some of his information directly from himself and from energetics and beings that he's connected to, that he has almost like special abilities. He really does tap into something beyond what we're tapping into here. And the time I do get to spend a lot of time with him, and sometimes just hanging out and being in his presence. And it is a marvel to just witness him, how he lives his life. He is so in his innocence, and he is so in joy and kind of rolling with whatever's going on. Um, that it's inspiring to see. And I don't know what is our potential, but that's what he's tapped into. He's always tapped into what's our potential and what can he bring to humanity that will help people's potentials to come online. And so he keeps uncovering new things like the Merkaba, but then also awakening the pineal gland, activating our psychic sensors, perceiving and connecting with our higher dimensional self, like all these things that really just add to our sovereignty. And so he's tracking that. And there are other beings in the world too who are doing things that seem like beyond human comprehension. And I do have a fascination with that, like breatharians and people who levitate and all those kind of things. Like it lets us know that it is something that is malleable. That's what I feel like. This field that we're in, whether it's a simulation, a hologram, whatever it is a malleable field. And the people who are doing superhuman kind of things are just proving to us that it's malleable. And the only thing limiting us, if it's an unlimited reality, is our belief patterns. And so that's the work of the heart, is melting away the belief patterns and going deeper and choosing deeper beyond the conditioning that we've been given. So I think that those people are beacons to remind us that almost anything is possible.
Yeah, no, awesome. Absolutely awesome. I get excited by it. Like, it just keeps me in that wonder. I just go, I wonder, like and then it brings the joy in, like you say, and without the expectation. So while wrapping up the podcast as well, I just want to mention the book one more time, because I'm going to go and order a copy. After seeing that, it's been on my mind, because I went to order it and it wasn't released here in Australia until I believe May the 1st. Because it's literally
Yeah,
just come out, right?
about a month ago.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So about a month ago, and so I wanted to bring awareness to that today, because I really feel these messages and this work is so important in this particular time in history where we're at right now, and people are really searching and looking, and just love what you're doing, and love how you've been supporting getting this work out from your space, and the fact that we can jump on a call, have a conversation and a chat, and share like this is just beautiful. So yeah, I just appreciate you and everything that you're
Thank you so
doing.
much.
And where can people find out more
Yeah,
about you
my
and the
website
work?
is
Where's the best place to send them?
violaRose.com. So pretty simple. Yeah, my first and last
ViolaRose.com.
name, violarose.com. And on there, all my various offerings, the workshops, the sound healing, the vocal coaching, all the things. And I have a YouTube channel as well, and things like that. So that's all linked there.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to add before we wrap up the podcast on what we
No,
covered
I feel
today?
like this was a really great, thorough, beautiful conversation.
Yeah. Viola, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
too.